Y'all, a new whistleblower report is raising further concerns about Donald Trump's now disbanded Department of Government Efficiency and the unfettered access it was given to your Social Security data. The Washington Post reports, quote, the Social Security Administration's internal watchdog is investigating a complaint that alleges a former DOJ employee claimed he had access to two highly sensitive agency databases and planned to share the information with his private employer. The Post adds, according to the complaint, he allegedly told the whistleblower that he needed help transferring data from a thumb drive to his personal computer so that he could sanitize the data before using it at the company. Those databases, according to the reporting, include records for more than 500 million living and dead Americans. Wired has identified the former DOJ engineer, according to multiple sources, as John Sully, who now works as the chief technology officer for the health IT division of a government contractor called Leidos, which has already received millions in Social Security Administration contracts. The Social Security Administration, Sully, and Leidos all deny the allegations in the complaint. Joining us now is senior writer at Wired, McKenna Kelly. Did I say that man's name right? Sully. Yeah. There we go. I said it 2 different times in that intro. The type of information in the Social Security Administration database that is alleged to have been breached, this is E4, let's bring that up. Your actual Social Security numbers, place and date of birth, citizenship, race and ethnicity, and parents' names. There are so many questions and have been about what DOJ had access to, and most importantly, what would happen next. This is the fear. This was the fear the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at a lot of what senators have said in response to this, they're calling it one of the biggest data breaches in American history. It's everything that you would have to send to the Social Security Administration in order to get a Social Security number, to get a Social Security card. And when we make these, when we give this information up to the government, we expect them to take care of it. We expect them to lock it down. And what we've seen here is that all of these DOJ folks came in and were given this crazy amount of access to data that, doesn't really get in a lot of people's hands for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Do you think when Republicans, MAGA Republicans, were so excited about DOJ that they thought this is what they would be signing up for?
No, I mean, when we had Donald Trump asking about it, bringing it up during the 2024 campaign, it was very much waste, fraud, and abuse. Mm-hmm. It wasn't going into systems and taking all this data and possibly bringing it to a private third-party company that already had all these contracts, $1.5 billion in contracts with the Social Security Administration. That was not part of the plan, at least from what was given during the campaign.
Mm-hmm. And actually, I want to dig a little bit deeper into what has been uncovered about the transfer of this information, because the Washington Post reports that there was essentially, this came out of a Justice Department court filing, that Social Security Administration discovered a secret agreement between a DOJ employee and an unidentified political advocacy group. The agreement called for sharing Social Security data with the aim of overturning election results in certain states, according to the filing. The agency also acknowledged for the first time that DOJ members had shared data with each other using an unsanctioned third-party service that Social Security officials have been unable to access. At the end of the day, for those of us with short memories, it was Elon Musk who was running the Department of Government Efficiency. What do we know about his involvement with these efforts?
Yeah, it's really unclear at this point. But when you bring up being able to use this data to go after, elections, people possibly voting illegally in elections, that's been one of the major fears about these data grabs. We've already seen major efforts at DHS to kind of revamp a database called the SAVE database. Mm-hmm. We're seeing a lot of this data being used, or could be used, interconnected in many ways, to come up with addresses, to come up with different ways to maybe track immigrants in areas, all across the country, but also, maybe use it to go after elections and try and find people who could be falsely or illegally voting in elections, which we all know it does not happen at the rate that this administration says it does.
But it's something that, nevertheless, Musk has been personally obsessed with for a time that predates Donald Trump.
Yeah. McKenna, I'm sorry. I'm not a lawyer.
You just look like one.
Why is it the person you wrote about, why is he not in jail? Because if any one of us were to take this kind of information, we're using words like breach and people's social security numbers and dates of birth and things like that. If any of us had that kind of data and we were taking it from one place to another, wouldn't we be in jail? Wouldn't yes, the guy denies it, but the actions that we're talking about, aren't they illegal? Or did I miss a memo and can I go out, quote unquote, criming like this myself?
Yeah, I mean, it seems incredibly illegal, right? But what the process is going through right now is this was a whistleblower complaint filed with the Inspector General's office at the Social Security Administration. And we all know from the beginning of this administration, the Trump administration made a lot of these IGs toothless. They revoked a lot of their power, a lot of their investigatory power, cut a lot of staffing and funding. And so even if this was to move to some kind of indictment, some kind of charge or something like that, it's going to be incredibly slow rolling. And then also, the next body that would be in charge of investigating this is the FBI. And that's, we've seen how that has worked.
Yes, we know. The FBI.
At the Olympics. Okay.
Right.
I want to go to this New York Times headline about these deposition videos. So if you guys are as online as some of us around this table are, then you've seen these videos of former Doge employees kind of talking about the ways in which they decided what things got defunded or unfunded or taken away. And they were forced to be pulled down because Justin Fox, one of those former Doge employees, has been the subject of significant harassment, including death threats. In one clip, he's asked whether he agreed with ChatGPT's flagging of a documentary about Jewish women who were slave laborers in the Holocaust. He said, it's specifically focused on Jewish culture and amplifying the marginalized voices of the females in that culture. It's inherently related to DEI for that reason. These deposition videos, this new kind of investigation that's happening, all of this continues to raise questions about why maybe unqualified, some would say, people had access to our information, but were also making decisions about who in this country was allowed to get money and why.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're seeing a lot in this specific lawsuit that you bring up. And it kind of comes down to also, I mean, when I read that and when I've been following this, what is the definition of DEI?
Right. And he didn't have an answer.
He did not really have an answer.
He said it was in he said that the EO told me.
And specifically with the example that you just pointed out about the documentary about Jewish women slave laborers during the Holocaust, he said it was because it was about amplifying these women's voices. Is that DEI?
Crazy.
That's not the historical definition of DEI.
Right.
And so, I mean, when you look at that, and I think the New York Times reporting said something to this effect, that a lot of the grants that were cut was pretty much all of the grants during the Biden administration.
Right.
Is that the definition of DEI? I don't know. It sounds like it, at least from what we've seen by the actions of Doge.
Yeah. God, so much of this conversation is just... I might leave early. McKenna Kelly, thank you very much for coming back to The Weekend.